Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Man, February has been a busy month. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because we've had a lot to celebrate this month. We've had Black History Month, Women in Horror Month, Valentine's Day, and Mardi Gras just ended. So there's been a lot going on this month. And the thing is, I really wish that there was more weeks in February so I could continue on with the diversity that I have going on. But what I have decided to do is this year I'm going to start incorporating more women horror authors and horror authors who are people of color in my book reviews. And when I say people of color, this won't only just regard Black authors, it will also regard Latino, Asian, so on and so forth. So definitely expect more of a diversity this year. Now, technically, when you're seeing this, it's going to be March 1st. And right now I'm still in February. So even though you're seeing this on March 1st, I'm still going to treat this like it's February. And the last book I'm going to review for this month is going to pay homage to not only the female author, but also the Black author. And I've decided that with this, the most suitable book would be Oyinkan Braithwaite's debut novel, My Sister, the Serial Killer. Now, even though this is not a full-fledged horror novel, it totally falls under that dark fiction category. So because of that, I do feel it is suitable for review. And also, I really feel like it's a layered book. Like, after I read this the first time, I just kind of sat there a second and felt like it was a quick Pulp Fiction read. But the more I thought about it, the more layered I realized the characters were, and I really considered the symbolism that was going on throughout this. And the book is so much deeper than what it appears when you do a surface read of it. So I wanted to cover that for those reasons, and also the title alone. I've really heard a lot of people in the horror community asking what people thought about this book, and if they would consider it a horror, or if the horror fandom would like it. And as I said, even though it's not a horror book, I do believe the horror fandom will like it, and that's why I really want to do this video on what you can expect from My Sister, the Serial Killer. My Sister, the Serial Killer is told in a first-person perspective and introduces the lead character, Corday. Now, Corday is the older sibling of the girl named Iola, and the book begins where Corday has gotten a call from Iola because Iola has murdered her boyfriend named Vimy. So when Corday shows up at Vimy's apartment, she learns Iola murdered him because he was abusive and she feared for her life, so this was out of self-defense. Well, that's understandable, really, except this is like about the third person who Iola has murdered. And also, this is not the first time that Corday has heard this excuse come out of her sister's mouth. Nonetheless, she cleans up the homicide and they dispose of the body and life continues as normal. And the thing is, the sisters, they're already in the spotlight because they're a part of a wealthy family. Well, Iola uses this to her benefit, especially on social media, because she ends up using Instagram as her alibi. And what I mean by that is she goes to Instagram and posts pictures of herself and Vimy, and she talks about how badly she misses him, and if anyone knows his whereabouts, to contact the authorities. And she even goes as far as to posting, like, poetry in his honor to show how badly she's mourning. But in actuality, she's not mourning at all. She's not resentful at all for what she's done. There's no remorse. But the thing is, she just wants to go on and make a star of herself online and then jump right back into the dating game. And the thing is, Corday is like, well, this is way too soon. If you start dating again, then people are going to start suspecting that you are really not credible and you might be the reason why Vimy is missing. So Iola takes that into consideration and she just kind of lays low. And as life continues, you have where Corday goes to work. And as a matter of fact, Corday is a nurse and she works under the doctor named Tade. And she's told her family not to come to her workplace, but one day Iola goes against her wishes and shows up there at the hospital anyway. And this is where Tade meets Iola and he falls head over heels in love with her. And the thing is, here's the twist. Corday is in love with Tade, so now she's conflicted. What should she do? Should she continue just letting her sister kill people, or should she try to convince Tade not to go out with her sister? And this becomes really a pickle for her because she knows that if Tade continues going out with Iola, he's just going to become another one of her victims. In the past, Oyinkan Braithwaite said when she started My Sister the Serial Killer, all she had in mind was a story that regarded a murderess. But as she plotted, she wanted to comment on how society responded to beautiful people. And character-wise, she modeled Iola's character after the Black Widow spider. Braithwaite said, although her book is set in Nigeria, her interests are so globally diverse, it is not a book that is fully Nigerian. And when she produces a work, it will be a conglomeration of her interest. Also, when Braithwaite wrote My Sister the Serial Killer, she did so without a genre in mind. But if it had to be categorized, she said she would consider it to be noir. Fun facts. When researching Oyinkan Braithwaite, I discovered that she was a very pleasant person, and some of the interviews that I watched of her were so humble and adorable. So if you haven't checked out her interviews, be sure to go to YouTube and check out all of the ones that she's contributed to. But out of the videos that I watched and also what I've seen online, here's some of the fun facts that I gathered up. Oyinkan Braithwaite studied law and creative writing at Surrey University. Over the years, she has worked as an assistant editor at Casio and is a top 10 spoken word artist in the Echo Poetry Slam. After the release of My Sister the Serial Killer, Oyinkan Braithwaite was longlisted for the Booker Prize. Currently, there is word of My Sister the Serial Killer becoming a movie, but I'm not sure the category of comedy is correct for this work. Now that we have all of that covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler section of this video. Pretty much, if you haven't read this book, I'm going to reveal some twists and character development that could ruin the experience for you if you've never read this before. So if you wish to avoid this section, just scroll down to the comments. You'll see that I have a timestamp at the pinned comment, and you just click on that timestamp and it will redirect you to the thoughts section of this video. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Now that everyone has had a chance to click away, there are two subjects I want to touch on in this book. Now, one subject is very suspenseful and it stretches from almost beginning to end. And the second one, I just found a lot of joy in because you had an asshole who got his comeuppance, and truth be it, he deserved it because he was an arrogant know-it-all dickhead. Now, between the two subjects, the first one I want to touch on is going to be the suspenseful one. And this is where you have the character Corday, who has no one to confide in regards to the dark secret she shares with Iola. So while she's at work, there is an elderly man who's a coma patient, and his name is Muhtar. So Corday goes to his room every day and she relays to him her darkest secrets. And while this is going on, she thinks it's a safe place for her to do this. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, well, even though he's in a coma, he's comprehending everything she's telling him. And if he wakes up, he's going to sing like a bird and it's going to be curtains for her. Well, at the end of the book, near the end of the book, Muhtar does wake up and he requests for Corday to come to his room. And when they're alone, he confesses to her that he did comprehend everything she relayed to him while he was in a coma. And she tries to dismiss it as first, but he's like, well, don't worry, I'm not going to turn you in because one, if I tell the authorities everything you told me, they're not going to take me as a credible source because I was in a coma and it could have been just my imagination. Secondly, I really feel that because of you coming to visit me every day and talking to me every day, this is the reason why I'm no longer in a coma. It was you coming here, talking to me, visiting me, that just gave me the gumption to eventually wake up. And because of this, he's grateful to her, and he says that he's not going to turn her in for those two reasons. Now, as far as the asshole getting his comeuppance, we have the character of Tade that comes in at this part. And the thing is, the moment that Tade and Iola get together, you have Corday who tries to sabotage their relationship, but she tries to do it as nicely as she possibly can. And in the process of her doing this, Tade begins berating her. He says that Corday is a disappointment, a horrible individual. She should stand by her sister. She should support her sister no matter what. And because of how she talks about her sister and how they shouldn't be together, that Corday is just an awful person. And this beratement goes for a good portion of the book. It's so much that I just wanted to throat punch the bastard, or at least take Corday and say, you know what, just let him die. At this point, he's an asshole. He deserves it. You can find a better man. Don't worry. But no. As everything continues on, you have Tade who finally sees Iola's true colors. And this comes about because Iola and Tade are at his apartment and Corday is called over there to help. Well, what has happened is you have where Iola has attacked Tade, trying to stab him to death with her knife. And there's a scuffle and he takes the knife from her and is able to stab her just to, thin her off. Well, anyway, when Corday gets in there, Iola's like, he attacked me and I tried to defend myself in self-defense. And Tade's like, no, that's not what happened. She just jumped on me with the knife and I had no other choice but to do this. Well, Corday's the only one who's like really thinking good here. And so she's like, okay, well, we're going to go to the hospital. Here's the story we're going to give and we're just going to play it out like that. And so they all agree to it and they go to the hospital. Well, while Iola is having surgery, Corday tells Tade, she's like, listen, if you say anything different than the story we have planned, then we're going to say that you attacked us. And at this moment, this is when Corday has him by the balls and he realizes it. And it's that just utter shock that he has where I'm like, ha ha, your cocky ass has been shot down. So I was very happy about that. Now, here's the cherry on the cake, though. It doesn't just end there. Because while they've agreed on this, when you have Iola who wakes up from the surgery she's undergoing, she's interviewed by the cops. And the cops ask her what happened. Well, Iola's like, he proposed to me, and when I said no, he stabbed me. And pretty much this seals the deal, and Tade gets his medical license revoked and his ass is thrown in jail for a few months. And I'm like, that's what you get for not listening to reason, you jackass. Even though Corday and Iola are the main stars of this book, I really want to shine the spotlight on their parents, because I honestly believe had their parents been more caring, involved, and more compassionate towards the girls, then we might not have a serial killer on our hands. Now, granted, you do have Iola who is a sociopath, and that is a medical condition that cannot be helped. However, if she were in an actual caring household, then maybe there could have been some help for her to ease some of these tendencies that she had. I mean, there are possibilities out there where if you are a sociopath, you can get help for that. Yeah, it might not cure the whole idea of being a sociopath, but it can also help. But anyway, I'm going to rewind a little bit because we're focusing on their parents, and I'm going to paint the picture of how they got together. What you need to know here is their mama married their father out of a political arrangement. This was not a loving arrangement whatsoever. It was just pure political. So anyway, you fast forward to years later and discover the man that she married is an abusing asshole. He abuses his daughters. He abuses his wife. And even at one point, just to show the depths that this asshole will go to, he ends up bringing a hussy home, and when he's confronted by his wife, he beats his wife down, takes said hussy into their bedroom, and sleeps with her in their marital bed while the wife is in the living room crying her eyes out. Now, had I been that wife, I honestly do not care what political reason it is we got together. I don't care how big your dick is. The moment that you actually, you know what? The moment you hit my kids, even if the dick is that good, I would cut that off, throw it in the freezer, and save it for hard times, by golly. Sorry about that. Got a little heated and had to go to the freezer. While I was there, made myself a drink. Cheers. Now that we got that Mel shoving his pig of a father out of the way, I want to focus on that superficial twat of a mother. And by the way, that bastard dad at this point, he's kicked the bucket, and we tend to think that Iola murdered his sorry ass. And granted, it doesn't really say for a fact that she did or didn't murder him, but we do know she was present when he died. But on to the mom. So, despite the fact that the father has damaged the girls as much as he could, the mom also has to put her 2 cents worth in. And this comes across as in favoritism. And as you may have guessed, Iola is her favorite of the 2 daughters because Iola is just as superficial and just as elitist as her mom. And it's so blatant, too. And Corday sees how blatant it is. Corday is totally in the mindset that she is the lesser sister and she is not loved as much as Iola. And that's just messed up. I mean, I'm not a parent. I don't intend to ever be a parent. But I know good and damn well that if I had more than one kid, I would treat them equally, because if not, it would cause anxiety, it would cause esteem issues, and it would probably also cause trust issues, and that's just the top 3 I can think of. So if you're parent enough to have more than one kid, treat them equally. So, aside from this damage going on, you have the mother who has told Corday ever since a young age, you are the older sister, and because of you being the older sister, you're responsible for Iola. That means you have to make sure she's making the right decisions, she knows how to take care of herself, so on and so forth. And if you do not do so and she makes a screw up, that is going to go back on you. You are going to get reprimanded because you did not raise your little sister right. You know what? If you are a parent and you are a parent enough to have more than one kid, do not put those parental responsibilities on the oldest child, or any child for that matter. If you are going to be a parent, you have got to be a leader. You have got to show your kids what paths they need to take in life and hope that they adapt to them. You have got to show them equal love. You have to be a role model. Don't put that crap on another kid, because all you're doing is robbing them of their childhood, and that is messed up. And, of course, she's messed up Corday in this sense, because Corday has understood that if Iola gets in trouble, it is her ass, because she should have guided her otherwise. And she takes this to the extreme. Because of this being pounded into her head, she is met with the circumstance of her sister being a serial killer, and rather than doing anything but the right thing, she's there cleaning up the crime scenes and disposing the body, because she feels it is her obligation to protect her sister no matter what. And this, my friends, is what happens when you have a bastard father, a craphead mother, and they just decided to build a broken home together. I really like the character development of this book because it feels like the characters were written with a deliberate openness that allows your mind to fill in the blanks, especially like what this character would do under this circumstance or other circumstances. But with that said, each character does have enough development invested in them where they have their own personality, and for some of them, it's a strong personality. Now, with that said, none of the characters in this book are saints whatsoever. What you have here is nothing but damaged individuals, and I love books like this because it makes you wonder who you should root for or what you would do under this circumstance. Now, as far as social commentary is concerned, the author does comment on how mental illness can be inherited. And we get this suggestion because as we're getting the backstory of the father who is the dad of Corday and Iola, we get the idea that he was a sociopath who had murdered people. Well, of course, these are the exact same tendencies that Iola has, so we see where it's been inherited from father to daughter. Another subject that comes into play is the dangers of enabling an individual. Now, this is a scene where we have Corday, who is cleaning up the homicides and disposing of the bodies left behind by Iola. And even though she is keeping Iola out of prison and giving it where she is having her freedom and such, the thing is, Corday would be helping Iola a lot more if she turned her into the authorities so Iola could get the correct mental help that was needed. Not to mention, Corday would probably be saving a lot of lives by doing this. Other subjects that come into play, and these are ones I covered in the spoilers section, so I won't go into depth here. These subjects regard when a parent has favoritism among their children, and also when a parent pushes off their parental duties on the oldest sibling to take care of their younger siblings. And it is very psychological in this sense because we see under this circumstance where Corday has been forced to believe she should stand by her sister no matter what. And under this light, she stands by her sister under the most extreme cases. Now, as far as symbolism is concerned, I noticed that there was a great emphasis put on the murder weapon in this book, which that is the knife that the father had used to murder people when he was alive. But once he died, of course, Iola took that murder weapon and is now using it to stab her boyfriends to death. Well, what I find interesting about this is it seems like it is a physical reminder that what her father had done in life has been passed down to her. But at the same time, it seems like this is a torch that she has taken from him and has ran with it. So it was really interesting to see how that was suggested in the book. With all of that aside, I would like to comment on how critics have said, well, some critics have said that this was a dark comedy. Personally, I did not see anything comedic about this whatsoever, and maybe it's because I was so invested in the story and the characters that any type of humor just passed me by. But I didn't find anything humorous about it. And as far as this being a horror book, as I said, it is not a horror book whatsoever. But it does totally fall into that category of dark fiction, thriller, and suspense. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of something that readers or fans of the Dexter series would enjoy. As I've said before, this is not a horror book, but it is a book that I do highly recommend. I enjoyed the characters, the pacing, and also I found that it was a unique spin on having a serial killer be in the limelight and how people respond to that individual, especially when that individual is a beautiful person. So that felt unique, and it was something that really commented on how millennials utilize the internet. So this is something fresh if you're thinking, oh, it's just your same typical old serial killer book. It honestly isn't, and it's really good for a social debate. So I really enjoyed this. this. I do recommend it, and it is a quick and easy read. On to the questions. My first question is, what is a serial killer book that you would recommend to me where the serial killer is absolutely ruthless and it goes from being a thriller suspense to a flat-out horror? Please leave those in the comments section. Secondly, and I don't want to say who is your favorite serial killer, because technically you should not have a favorite serial killer. These people have done awful things, and there's nothing that should be glamorized about them. They should not be looked at like celebrities. So instead of asking who your favorite serial killer is, I would like to simply ask, what serial killer has infatuated you the most? Personally, for me, it's Ed Gein. The reason why is because it seems like this is just something that is beyond my comprehension of what another individual could do to a person. And so every time I read up on things that he did, or I see photos of the crime scenes and stuff, it just blows my mind to know another person could go this far. So truth be it, he's creeped me out ever since I first heard about him, and that was when I was like a kid. And that's also why I'm wearing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt now, because he's also very influential. He inspired Leatherface, Norman Bates, the list continues. And so because of that, I feel he was very diverse in what he did, and I'm infatuated by that case. So I would have to say Ed Gein. And I look forward to your comments in the section as well. And also, please elaborate on why that serial killer has infatuated you. Now that we have all of that covered, it's time that I wrap up this video. And before I head out, I would like to say thank you to Lisa G and Joseph Baylott for contributing to my Patreon account. If you would like to contribute as well, there's a link to my Patreon in the description section of this video. And for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. Also, if you are a creator and you contribute, let me know what you create and I'll tie that title onto your name. And also, I do have a new tier available on Patreon. And this is for $10 a month. I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos, and on the side I do photography. So once a month, I'll send you over at the beginning of that month a creepy image that I have taken. So it will continue to stay within the horror genre. Now, if you would like to connect with me on social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, please go to the description section of this video and you'll have those opportunities. And please feel free to hit me up because I'd love to hear from you. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe and also hit that notifications bell. I do have tons more of book reviews coming up in the near future, and I would hate for you to miss one. But until we see each other again, I hope you have a wonderful week and sweet nightmares.